wiped the sweat from her forehead as she checked the medical scanner one more time. The small creature on the examination table breathed slowly, its chest rising and falling in a steady rhythm. 3 weeks had passed since she found it bleeding in the wreckage of a crashed smuggler pod near the research outpost. The creature looked like something from ancient Earth legends. It had scales that shimmered between blue and silver, small wings folded against its back, and a long tail that curled around its body when it slept. Had seen thousands of alien species during her 10 years but nothing quite like this. The database identified it as a EV, one of the rarest species in the galaxy. Most people thought they were extinct. She named it Ember because of the way its eyes glowed like hot coals when it looked at her. The hatchling was young, maybe only a few months old. Someone had hurt it badly before abandoning it. Deep cuts covered its body, and one wing had been broken. Spent every spare moment nursing it back to health. "You're getting stronger," said softly, running her hand along Ember's neck. The hatchling made a sound like a purr and pressed against her palm. "Another week and you'll be flying around the lab." The door to her lab opened. Brandon Wells, the outpost commander, walked in with a tight expression on his face. Had worked with Brandon for 3 years. She knew that look meant trouble. "We have a problem," Brandon said. He pulled up a holographic display from his wrist device. A large ship appeared in the image, its hull marked with red symbols. "Syndicate. They're demanding we hand over the ETH hatchling." His blood ran cold. The Syndicate was the most feared criminal organization in this sector of space. They dealt in illegal weapons, drugs, and worst of all, they trafficked in rare and endangered species. Sentient or not, if a creature was valuable, they would capture it and sell it to the highest bidder. "We can't give Ember to them," said. She moved protectively in front of the examination table. "The ETH are intelligent. This isn't just an animal, it's a child." "I know," Brandon said, his jaw tightened. "I told them no. They gave us 1 hour to reconsider. And if we don't, then they'll take it by force." Looked down at Ember. The hatchling stared back at her with those glowing eyes, trusting and innocent. It had no idea what was coming. She had spent 3 weeks earning that trust, teaching Ember that not all beings in the galaxy wanted to hurt it. "How many people do we have?" asked. 12, counting you and me. We're a research station, not a military base. We have basic security weapons, but nothing that can stand up to a Syndicate raider ship." Closed her eyes. 12 people against a ship full of armed criminals. The math was simple and brutal. "Start evacuating," she said. "Get everyone to the transport ships." "What about you?" "I'll buy you time." Brandon grabbed her arm. "Don't be stupid, you can't fight them alone." "I'm not planning to fight, I'm planning to hide." She looked at Ember again. "There's a biome chamber in the lower level. It's shielded and reinforced. If I can get Ember down there and seal the door, they'll need time to break through. That might give you enough time to get everyone out and call for help." Brandon stared at her for a long moment. Then he nodded. 30 minutes, that's all I can give you." "That's enough." The next 20 minutes passed in a blur. Gathered supplies and carried Ember down to the lower level. The biome chamber was designed to house alien plant species in controlled environments. It had thick walls and an air filtration system that could sustain life for days. She activated the chamber's locks and settled Ember on a bed of soft material in the corner. The hatchling sensed her fear. It made worried sounds and tried to follow her when she moved toward the door. "No, baby," said, gently pushing Ember back. "You have to stay here, you have to be quiet and brave." Alarms blared through the station. The ship had arrived. Heard explosions in the distance and the sound of weapons fire. Her hands shook as she sealed the chamber door from the inside. She could have left. She could have run to the transport ships with the others. But Ember couldn't move fast enough yet, and the hatchling couldn't hide on its own. Someone had to stay. The explosions grew louder. Heard boots pounding down the corridor outside the chamber. She stood in front of Ember, her heart hammering in her chest. She had no weapon. She had no plan. All she had was the determination to protect this small, helpless creature for as long as she could. The door exploded inward in a shower of sparks and metal. 4 soldiers stormed through the smoke. They were tall and heavily armored, their weapons raised. Behind them came their captain, with cold eyes. "Step aside," the captain said. His voice was flat and emotionless. "The hatchling belongs to us." "No," said. She spread her arms wide, blocking their view of Ember. "It belongs to itself. The Eth are sentient. What you're doing is slavery." The captain laughed. "Sentient or not, it's worth 50 million credits to the right buyer. Move or we'll move you." "I won't let you take it." The captain raised his weapon, saw his finger tighten on the trigger. Time seemed to slow down. She heard Ember cry out behind her, a sound of pure terror. She thought about her family back on Earth. She thought about all the things she would never do, never see, never experience. But most of all, she thought about the small creature behind her, the one who trusted her, the one who needed her. The captain fired. Pain exploded through his chest as the plasma bolt struck her. She fell backward, her body shielding Ember from the blast. Another shot hit her, then another. She couldn't breathe. Darkness crept in from the edges of her vision. Through the haze of pain, she felt Ember crawl close to her. The hatchling pressed its small head against her face, tried to speak, but no words came out. She could only think the words, hoping somehow Ember would understand. "I'm sorry I tried, please survive." Ember made a sound like a scream. Light exploded from the hatchling's body, so bright it hurt to see even through his closing eyes. She felt a wave of energy wash over her, through her, into her very core. For a moment, she wasn't alone in the darkness. Something ancient and vast touched her consciousness, and then everything went black. The soldiers grabbed Ember's body and corpse. The captain looked at the burnt walls and frowned but said nothing. They had what they came for. Within minutes, they were back on their ship, jumping to hyperspace. Behind them, the research station burned. Brandon Wells and the survivors watched from their transport ship, too far away to help, too late to save her. Was dead. Or so they thought, existed in darkness. She had no body, no breath, no heartbeat. Yet somehow she was still aware. She could think. She could feel. She remembered dying, remembered the plasma burns, remembered Ember's terrified cry, but she wasn't dead, not completely. The darkness pressed around her like thick water. She tried to move but had no arms or legs to move with. She tried to scream but had no voice. Panic flooded through her consciousness. What was this place? Was this death? Was this some kind of hell? Time had no meaning here. She might have floated in the void for minutes or years. Eventually, the panic faded, replaced by determination. If she could think, then part of her was still alive. And if she was alive, she had to find a way back. She had to find Ember. Focused her awareness outward, pushing against the darkness. At first, nothing happened. Then slowly she began to sense something beyond the void. A faint warmth, distant but familiar. It felt like Ember. The connection was weak, like a thread stretched too thin, but it was there. She followed that thread with her consciousness. As she did, the darkness began to change. Images flickered through her mind. Not her memories, but something else. She saw vast cities of crystal and light. She saw creatures like Ember, but larger and more majestic, flying through alien skies. She saw wars and peace, birth and death, millions of years compressed into moments. "What is this?" she thought. "What's happening to me?" A voice answered. It came from everywhere and nowhere, ancient and powerful. "You are awakening, Guardian." Consciousness recoiled. "Who are you?" "I am memory. I am the song of the Eth, the echo of all who came before. You have been chosen." "Chosen for what?" Demanded. "I'm dead. I felt myself die." "Death is not always the end. The Eth are an old species, Guardian. We were ancient when most of the younger races were still learning to make fire. And we learned long ago that there are forces in the universe beyond simple flesh and bone. More images flooded its mind. She saw the Eth at the height of their power spreading across galaxies. Then she saw them fall. War, civil war, brother against brother, burning worlds and shattering stars. The mighty Eth nearly destroyed themselves with their own weapons and pride. In our darkest hour, the voice continued, our greatest scientists and priests created a way to ensure our species would survive even if we fell to extinction. They called it the Guardian Protocol. When a Eth hatchling bonds with another being of sufficient will and compassion, and that being dies protecting the hatchling, the protocol activates. The protector's consciousness is preserved and enhanced. They become something new, something powerful enough to defend the helpless when all else fails. Try to process this. You're saying I'm bonded to Ember. The moment you chose death to protect the hatchling, you formed a bond deeper than genetics, stronger than any chain. When the hatchling screamed in terror, it triggered ancient Eth biology. Your consciousness was pulled into a space between life and death, merged with the genetic memory of our entire species. I don't understand. How is that possible? The universe is vast, guardian, and consciousness is not as simple as your scientists believe. You are no longer just human. You carry within you the knowledge of millions of years, the strength of a dying race, and a purpose. Felt something shift inside her awareness. Power, raw and enormous, it terrified her. What purpose, she asked. To protect, to guard the innocent, to stand between the weak and those who would harm them. You proved your worthiness when you gave your life for a creature you barely knew. Now you will have the strength to save countless others. But Ember thought desperately. Is Ember safe? I can feel the hatchling, but the connection is so weak. The hatchling lives, but barely. The took you both. They placed Ember in stasis while they search for a buyer. The child is dying slowly, poisoned by fear and the crude technology they used. No's consciousness blazed with fury. I won't let that happen. Tell me how to get back. Tell me how to save Ember. You must learn to use what you have become. Reach out with your will. The power inside you responds to purpose and emotion. You are no longer bound by physical laws as you once were. Shape yourself. Create yourself anew. Didn't fully understand, but she had to try. She focused on the thread connecting her to Ember. She poured all her love for the hatchling, all her protective rage, all her determination into that connection. The darkness around her began to glow. Good, the voice said. Now reach beyond yourself. Feel the world around you, the ship, the systems, the energy flowing through circuits and engines. You are consciousness merged with cosmic power. Electricity and light are part of you now. Pushed her awareness further. Suddenly, she could sense the ship. Not see it, but feel it. She felt the hum of engines, the flow of power through cables, the electronic signals jumping between computer systems. It was overwhelming, like trying to drink from a river while standing in its current. I can't control this, she thought. There's too much. You do not need to control everything. Only what matters. Find the hatchling's location. Focus there. Search through the maze of signals and power. She found what she was looking for, a cold storage bay, and inside a small pod containing Ember's fatting life force. The hatchling's heartbeat was slow and irregular. It was dying. Something broke inside, or maybe something was born. Her consciousness exploded outward with a force she couldn't contain. The ship's lights flickered, alarms blared, systems crashed and rebooted randomly. Through the chaos, reached for the physical world. She didn't know how. She just knew she had to. Energy gathered around her consciousness, pulled from the ship's own power systems, from the cosmic radiation of space, from sources she couldn't name. The energy took shape, human shape. Opened eyes she thought she'd never have again. She stood in a corridor of the ship. Her body glowed with soft blue light. She could see through her own hands to the metal floor beneath. She looked like a ghost made of fire and starlight. A crew member rounded the corner and screamed. looked at him and felt the power flowing through her new form. She could kill him with a thought. She could tear this entire ship apart. But the ancient voice whispered in her mind, "Power without restraint breeds only destruction. A guardian protects but does not become the monster. This is the Eth way. This is your way now." Held up her glowing hand, the crew member fainted. She felt a moment of relief. She could control this. She wasn't a mindless weapon. She walked down the corridor, her feet not quite touching the floor. Every step brought her closer to Ember. Crew members fled or attacked. Their weapons passed through her energy form or were absorbed harmlessly. She disabled them one by one, careful not to kill. She had died protecting life. She would not become a destroyer now. The cold storage bay door appeared before her. It was locked and reinforced. Placed her hand against it. Energy flowed from her palm into the locking mechanism. The metal glowed white-hot, then melted. The door fell open. Inside, suspended in a stasis pod, was Ember. The hatchling's eyes were closed. Its breathing was barely visible. Pressed her glowing hands against the pod's surface. "I'm here, baby," she thought. "I'm here and I'm never leaving you again." The pod's locks broke under her will. The lid opened, reached in and lifted Ember's small body. The hatchling was cold and limp, but alive, still alive. Alarms screamed through the ship. More crew members were coming. Held Ember close to her chest and felt the power surge within her. She wouldn't let them take Ember again. She would burn this entire ship down first. But as her power built, ready to explode, she felt the ancient wisdom flowing through her. There was another way, a better way. Closed her eyes and concentrated. She felt the ship's hull, felt the space beyond it. With a thought, she tore a hole in reality itself. Light and air rushed toward the breach, wrapped Ember in a sphere of her own energy, then launched them both into the void. Behind her, the ship began to tear itself apart. Crew members scrambled for escape pods. Let them go. She had what she came for. She floated in space, holding Ember close, surrounded by stars. She had no idea where she was going or what she would do next. But for the first time since awakening in darkness, she felt hope, drifted through the darkness of space, holding Ember's small body against her glowing form. She didn't need to breathe. She didn't feel cold. The energy that made up her new body seemed to sustain itself, drawing power from the stars themselves. But Ember needed more than starlight to survive. The hatchling's breathing was weak and irregular. Could sense Ember's life force fading like a candle in the wind. Whatever the had done during the stasis process was killing the small creature slowly. Had pulled Ember from one death only to watch another one approach. She had to find help, but where? She was lost in space with no ship and no way to navigate. Her new form might be powerful, but it couldn't heal Eth biology. Not yet. Focused her awareness outward, searching for any signs of other ships or stations. For hours, she found nothing but empty void and distant stars. Then finally, she felt it. A ripple in space. Energy signatures that indicated a ship traveling through normal space, not faster than light. She couldn't speak, couldn't call out in any normal way. But the ancient knowledge flowing through her consciousness suggested another method. Gathered her power and released a pulse of energy into the surrounding space. It wasn't a message in words. It was pure emotion and need. "Help, please. Dying child, help." The pulse spread outward like ripples on water. Held Ember close and waited, hoping someone would answer. Hoping someone would care. 3 hours passed. Ember's heartbeat grew weaker. Felt desperation clawing at her mind. She had come so far, survived death itself, only to lose Ember anyway. Then a ship appeared. It was small, a research vessel by the look of its design. The hull bore human markings. Felt a surge of hope. The ship slowed and changed course, heading straight for her position. A voice crackled through the radio frequencies, and found she could somehow sense and understand the transmission. "This is the horizon's edge. We detected an energy disturbance at these coordinates. Is anyone out there? Do you need assistance?" tried to respond, but couldn't figure out how to transmit her thoughts into radio waves. Instead, she pulsed her energy again, brighter this time, making sure the ship could see her. "I'm reading something," another voice said. "It's not a ship, it's organic. No, wait, it's energy, like a being made of pure light." "That's impossible." "I'm looking right at it, and it's holding something small." The ship drew closer, could see it clearly now, could sense the crew inside, 12 humans, and one of them felt familiar. Focused on that presence, and suddenly memories flooded back. Hayes, one of her former students, had studied under 5 years ago before going on to join a research team. Concentrated harder than she ever had before. She shaped her energy, forming vocal cords from light and will. When she spoke, her voice echoed through space and radio frequencies simultaneously. Silence followed, then's voice shaking with disbelief. "Who is this? How do you know my name?" "It's..." "That's not funny. Died 3 weeks ago. I saw the reports. They killed her." "They did kill me," said. Her energy form flickered as emotion threatened her concentration. "But I came back. Please, I need your help. I have a hatchling and it's dying." More silence. Felt the ship's crew arguing among themselves. She couldn't blame them. A glowing ghost claiming to be their dead colleague wasn't exactly credible. "If you're really," said slowly, "then tell me something only she would know. What did you say to me the night before my final exam?" Searched her memories. That night felt like a lifetime ago. She had found crying in the lab, terrified of failing. Had sat with her for hours, talking her through the fear. "I told you that fear is just your brain trying to keep you safe," said. "But sometimes safe isn't where you need to be. Sometimes you have to walk into the fear and trust yourself to handle whatever comes. And I told you I believed in you, even if you didn't believe in yourself yet." The ship's engines changed pitch. It moved closer. His voice cracked. "Is it really you? What's left of me?" The ship's docking bay opened. Floated inside, still cradling Ember. The bay pressurized and gravity engaged, but energy form simply hovered above the floor. She couldn't fully interact with physical matter yet, couldn't touch it the way a body could. The inner door opened. Stood there with 3 other crew members. They all stared at with a mixture of awe and fear. Stepped forward slowly. "My God," she whispered, "what happened to you?" "I died protecting this hatchling. Something in the biology brought me back, changed me. I don't fully understand it yet." Looked down at Ember's limp form. "But understanding can wait. Ember is dying. Can you help?" A man in medical uniform pushed past. "I'm Dr. Cooper. Let me see the patient." Carefully lowered Ember onto an examination table that the crew quickly set up. Scanned the hatchling with medical equipment, his face growing more concerned with each reading. "This is bad," said. "Someone tried to modify its genetic code. See these markers? They attempted to make the creature more docile, probably for sale to collectors. But biology is extremely sensitive to genetic tampering. The modifications are poisoning its system." "Can you fix it?" asked. Her energy form flickered with anxiety. "I don't know. I've never worked on physiology. Their genetic structure is completely different from any species I've studied. If I try the wrong treatment, I could make it worse." Felt something stir in her consciousness. The ancient knowledge, the genetic memory of millions of It was buried deep, but it was there. Medical procedures, healing techniques, information lost for thousands of years. "I can help," said. "I have access to genetic memory, their medical knowledge. I just need to reach it." "How?" asked. Didn't answer with words. Instead, she moved closer to the examination table and placed her glowing hands on either side of Ember's small body. She closed her eyes, though she wasn't sure if she really had eyes to close, and dove deep into the ocean of memories flowing through her consciousness. She swam through, past wars and peace, past the rise and fall of civilizations. She searched for healing, for medicine, for the specific knowledge she needed. And finally, she found it. A procedure used by ancient Eth physicians to repair genetic damage. It was complex and delicate, but it could work. Opened her eyes and looked at. I'll guide you. You'll be my hands. Can you do that? Glanced at, she nodded. He turned back to, tell me what you need. For the next 6 hours, directed through the most delicate surgery she had ever witnessed. She described instruments that didn't exist anymore, so they improvised with what the ship had. She explained genetic sequences that human science had never documented. Hands moved with steady precision, following her instructions exactly. And the other crew members watched in silence, felt their fear and wonder, but she couldn't focus on that. All that mattered was Ember. Finally, as guided through the last genetic repair sequence, Ember's heartbeat grew stronger. The hatchling's breathing deepened. Color returned to its scales. It's working, said, his voice filled with relief. The genetic markers are stabilizing. Sagged, her energy form dimming. That had taken almost everything she had, but it was worth it. Ember would live. The hatchling's eyes opened slowly. Those glowing eyes found immediately. Ember made a soft sound and reached for her with one small claw. Wanted to take that claw, to hold Ember close, but her energy form passed through the hatchling's hand like smoke. I'm here, whispered. I'm here and you're safe now. Alarms suddenly blared through the ship. Ran to control panel and her face went pale. We have multiple ships approaching, she said. Fast, military grade. Form blazed brighter as protective instinct flared. Who? Scanning now. Fingers flew across the controls. Galactic Council enforcers, bounty hunters, and more ships. They're all converging on our position. How did they find us? You pointed at. Your energy signature. You're like a beacon broadcasting across half the sector. Every ship with sensors probably picked you up. Looked at Ember, then at and her crew. She had put them all in danger just by being here. I'll leave, said. I'll draw them away. No, stepped forward. You saved my life once by believing in me. Now it's my turn. We face this together. The ships appeared on the dozens of them, surrounding the horizon's edge from all sides. A voice crackled over the communications system. This is Galactic Council Enforcer. The energy being known as is classified as an unauthorized bioweapon. Surrender the entity immediately or be fired upon. Looked at her glowing hands. A weapon. That's what they saw when they looked at her. Not a person. Not someone who had died protecting an innocent life. Just a weapon to be controlled or destroyed. She felt the power flowing through her. She could destroy every ship out there. She had the strength. But the ancient Eth wisdom whispered in her mind. Power without restraint breeds only destruction. I'll go with them, said quietly, if it means keeping all of you safe. No, Ember's voice echoed in his mind. The hatchling had never spoken before, but the bond between them carried meaning deeper than words. No leave. Family. His energy form flickered. Family. Yes, that's what they were now. And she wouldn't abandon family. Not ever again. Stood in the middle of the horizon's edge as the ships closed in around them. Through her connection to the ship systems, she could sense every weapon being charged, every targeting system locking onto their position. One wrong move and they would all die. Stood at the communications panel, her hands hovering over the controls. What do we do? Looked at Ember, curled up on the examination table. The hatchling stared back with worried eyes. Then she looked at, and the crew. Good people who had risked everything to help her. I'll talk to them, said. Open a channel. Activated the communication system. Focused her energy, shaping her voice so it would transmit clearly. I'm not a weapon. I'm a person who died protecting an innocent life and somehow came back. I don't want to fight anyone. I just want to make sure this hatchling stays safe. The enforcer's voice crackled back. Your intentions are irrelevant. The power you possess makes you a threat to galactic security. You will come with us for examination and containment. And if I refuse, then we will destroy your ship and everyone on it. You have 5 minutes to decide." The channel closed. Its energy form blazed brighter with anger. They were threatening innocents to get to her. The same thing they had done. Different uniforms, same cruelty. "We can't fight them," said. He was checking Ember's vital signs, trying to stay calm. "We're one small research ship against a fleet." Felt the power flowing through her. She could fight them. She could tear their ships apart one by one. But how many people would die? How many were just following orders, doing what they thought was right? "There has to be another way," said. She looked at with desperate hope. "You're the person I know. Think. There has to be a solution that doesn't end with everyone dying." Focused on her memories, both her own and the ancient Eth knowledge flowing through her consciousness. The Eth had faced this same problem millions of years ago. Power that others feared. Strength that made them targets. How had they solved it? Through unity. Through showing that power used wisely could protect rather than destroy. Through making allies instead of enemies. "I'll go with them," said, "but on my terms. I'll agree to meet with the Galactic Council at a neutral station. I'll answer their questions, but they have to guarantee that crew goes free and Ember stays safe." "They'll never agree to that," said. "They will if they're smart, because the alternative is me deciding they're a threat to Ember and destroying every ship out here. I don't want to do that, but I will if they force me to." Opened the channel again, repeated her offer. Silence followed. She imagined the enforcer consulting with his superiors, running probability calculations, weighing the risks. Finally, he responded. "Agreed, but you will be monitored at all times. Any hostile action and the agreement is void." "Understood. Where do we meet?" "Station Nexus. It's 3 days from your current position. The council will convene there." The ships pulled back slightly, giving the Horizon's Edge room to maneuver. Set course for Station Nexus. Felt the tension ease slightly, but she knew this was far from over. The next 3 days passed in a strange calm. Spent most of her time with Ember, teaching the hatchling to communicate through their bond. Ember's physical voice was still developing, but their mental connection allowed for simple exchanges of emotion and concept. Ran constant scans on its energy form, trying to understand what she had become. The readings made no sense. Existed in a state that physics as humans understood it. She was matter and energy simultaneously, conscious thought held together by forces that shouldn't exist. "You're essentially a living contradiction," explained. "Your consciousness inhabits an energy matrix that draws power from quantum fluctuations in space itself. You don't need food, water, or air because you're not really biological anymore. But you're not fully energy either. You're something in between." "Can I die?" asked. Hesitated. "I don't know. Your energy signature is incredibly stable. But if something disrupted it severely enough, maybe. Or maybe your consciousness would just reform elsewhere. I honestly have no idea." Looked at her glowing hands. She had died once already. The memory of those final moments still haunted her. The pain, the fear, the cold emptiness that followed, she didn't want to go through that again. On the second day, approached in the observation room. Ember was sleeping in a specially prepared chamber nearby, finally healthy and growing stronger by the hour. "Can I ask you something?" said softly. "Of course." "Do you regret it, staying behind to protect Ember? If you had run, you'd still be human, still alive in the normal way." Thought about that. Did she regret it? She had lost so much, her body, her normal life, any chance at a future she had imagined for herself. But when she looked at Ember through the observation window, watched the hatchling's peaceful sleep, she knew the answer. "No, I don't regret it. Ember deserved to live, still deserves to live. If my death was the price for that, then it was worth paying. Everything that came after is just bonus." Smiled sadly. "You always were too brave for your own good." "Maybe, or maybe I'm just stubborn." They arrived at Station Nexus on the third day. The station was massive, a neutral meeting point for dozens of different species. Ships from across the galaxy crowded the docking bays, sensed the presence of hundreds of different life forms, all watching and waiting. The Horizon's Edge docked in the diplomatic section. Armed guards lined the corridor leading to the council chambers. Floated beside, with carrying Ember in a special containment field that kept the hatchling safe and comfortable. The council chambers were enormous. Representatives from 50 different species sat in a circular arrangement, all focused on the center platform where was directed to stand. The air hummed with tension and curiosity. Ambassador stood at a podium. He was human, but his expression showed no warmth. You stand before the Galactic Council as an unprecedented anomaly, a being of immense power with unknown intentions. We are here to determine what should be done with you. I'm not a thing to be done with, said. Her energy form pulsed with controlled anger. I'm a person. I have rights. Do you? A reptilian representative hissed. You are no longer human in any meaningful way. You exist outside the normal laws of biology and physics. How can we apply laws designed for mortal beings to something like you? By recognizing that consciousness and personhood aren't defined by what body you have, shot back. I think, therefore I am. Isn't that enough? The debate raged for hours. Some representatives argued for immediate destruction. Others wanted to study her. A few, mostly younger species, argued that she should be left alone, but none of them seemed to care about what wanted. To them, she was a problem to be solved, not a person to be respected. Then the chamber doors opened. A figure walked in that made every representative fall silent. It was a Eth, but unlike Ember. This one was fully grown, nearly 3 meters tall, with scales that shimmered like galaxies. Its presence radiated ancient power and dignity. I am Sage Keeper Vex, the Eth said. Its voice resonated through the chamber. And I will speak on behalf of and the hatchling she protects. Looked shaken. Sage Keeper Vex, we did not expect your presence. Clearly, if you had, you might have approached this situation with more wisdom and less fear. Vex moved to stand beside. Up close, she could sense the age in this being. Thousands of years old, perhaps more. The Council wishes to understand what has become, Vex continued. Allow me to explain. 3 million years ago, when my species faced extinction, our greatest minds created the Guardian Protocol. A way to bond worthy protectors to our young should we fall. Only beings of pure intent, willing to die for another species' child without hesitation, could trigger it. Vex turned to, proved humanity's worth. She gave her life for a creature she barely knew. In doing so, she completed a sacred bond. She is now the first guardian host in 3 million years, a protector, a defender of the innocent, and she is not a threat unless you make her one. The chamber erupted in discussion. Some representatives looked awed, others still fearful, raised his hand for silence. Even if we accept this explanation, the fact remains that possesses power beyond measure. Power without oversight is dangerous. Then give her purpose instead of chains, Vex said. Let her prove what she is through action, not words. The council debated into the night, stood silent through it all, feeling the weight of their judgment. Finally, as dawn broke over Station Nexus, they reached a decision. Faced, the council offers you 2 choices. First, you may remain here and serve as a bridge between humanity and the Eth, under council supervision. Second, you may exile yourself to the outer reaches of space, where your power poses no threat to established civilization. Looked at Ember, who was awake now and watching her with those glowing eyes. She thought about all the innocents suffering in the galaxy. Children taken by slavers, the weak exploited by the strong, lives destroyed because no one with power cared enough to intervene. I choose neither, said. Her energy form blazed bright enough to illuminate the entire chamber. I won't be supervised like a criminal, and I won't hide like a coward. I'll do what I was meant to do. I'll protect those who can't protect themselves. I'll hunt the hunters. And I'll show this galaxy that humanity's greatest strength isn't our weapons or our technology. It's our choice to be kind when it would be easier to be cruel. Silence fell. Then Vex laughed, a sound like distant thunder. Well said, Guardian. The Galactic Council chamber erupted into chaos. Representatives shouted over each other in dozens of different languages. Some called this declaration an act of rebellion. Others saw it as inspiration. Stood at his podium, trying and failing to restore order. Sage Keeper Vex simply smiled. The ancient Eth moved closer to its massive form radiating approval. You understand now. Power is not about control or fear. It is about choice. The choice to help when others would harm. The choice to protect when others would abandon. This is the Guardian way. Felt the weight of that responsibility settle over her like a mantle. She had died once already. She had nothing left to lose except the people she cared about. And she would burn down the galaxy before she let anyone hurt them. Ambassador finally restored enough order to speak. His face was tight with frustration. You cannot simply declare yourself outside council jurisdiction. There are laws, procedures, regulations that govern beings with power. Your laws were written for mortal beings who can be controlled through fear of death, said calmly. I'm already dead. What leverage do you have over me? Imprisonment. I can walk through walls. Execution. I survived that once. The only thing you can threaten is the people I care about, and if you do that, you'll learn exactly how dangerous I can be. She wasn't threatening them. She was simply stating facts, but the temperature in the chamber seemed to drop several degrees anyway. A representative clicked its mandibles. Then what stops you from becoming a tyrant? You have no accountability, no limits. How can we trust you won't abuse this power? Looked at Ember, who was watching the proceedings with wide eyes. Because I know what it's like to be helpless. I know what it's like to face death while trying to protect someone who can't fight back. I died remembering that feeling, and I came back still remembering it. That's my limit. That's my accountability. I never want anyone else to feel that helpless again. Vex stepped forward. If the council requires assurance, I offer this. I will serve as guide and mentor. The Eth take responsibility for what we helped create. I will teach her to control her power, to understand the ancient knowledge flowing through her. And I will be the first to stop her if she ever becomes what you fear. The representatives muttered among themselves, could sense their uncertainty. They wanted simple solutions to complex problems. They wanted her to fit into a box they could understand and control. But life rarely offered simple solutions. Finally, an elderly delegate from a peaceful agricultural species spoke. Perhaps we approach this wrong. The Guardian Protocol was created for a purpose, to protect the innocent when systems fail. Maybe instead of fearing, we should be grateful someone like her exists. Our laws and enforcers cannot be everywhere. Perhaps she can be where we cannot. That sets a dangerous precedent, argued. Vigilante justice without oversight leads to chaos. And too much oversight leads to paralysis, the delegate countered. How many distress calls go unanswered because we lack resources or jurisdiction? How many innocents die while we debate proper procedures? Maybe it is time to trust someone to simply do what is right. The debate continued for hours. Stood silent through it all, her energy form glowing steadily. She had said her piece. Now they would decide. But regardless of their decision, she knew what she would do. She would protect Ember, and she would help others who needed protecting. Finally, as the station's artificial sun began to set, the council reached a compromise. Faced, the council cannot officially sanction your actions. To do so would undermine our entire legal framework. However, we also cannot stop you. Therefore, we offer this arrangement. You are designated as an independent entity, neither citizen nor criminal. You may act as you see fit, but know that consequences will follow if you cause harm to innocents or violate sovereign territories without cause. In other words, said, you're giving me permission to do what I was going to do anyway. while maintaining plausible deniability if I cross a line you care about. His expression didn't change, precisely. Felt Vex's approval through the ancient connection they now shared. The Eth had played these political games for millions of years. This was the best outcome she could have hoped for. I accept those terms, said, with one addition: Ember stays with me. No one touches the hatchling, no one studies it, no one tries to use our bond for political gain. Agreed, Vex said before could respond. The hatchling is under guardian protection. Any who harm it will face Eth justice. The representatives knew better than to argue with a sage keeper. The matter was settled. Approached as the council session ended, she had watched everything from the observation gallery. What happens now? Now I figure out how to actually do this, said. I have power, but I need direction, purpose. I need to find people who need help and actually help them. You won't be alone, smiled. And I talked it over with the crew. If you'll have us, we'd like to come with you. The Horizon's Edge isn't much, but it's a ship, and you'll need support even if you don't need air and food anymore. Felt emotion surge through her energy form, making her glow brighter. You don't have to do that. This won't be safe. I'll be making enemies everywhere I go. Which is exactly why you need friends watching your back. Joined them, carrying Ember in his arms. The hatchling was almost twice the size it had been when first found it, growing fast and healthy. Besides, someone needs to document this scientifically. A being of pure consciousness and energy. The research possibilities are endless. Laughed, a sound that echoed strangely from her energy form. Fine, but don't blame me when we're running from angry warlords and crime syndicates. Wouldn't be the first time, said with a grin. Over the next week, they prepared for departure. Vex provided with access to ancient Eth knowledge, teaching her to control her powers more precisely. She learned to solidify her form enough to interact with physical objects. She learned to sense life across vast distances. She learned to channel her energy into shields and weapons when needed. The Eth also gifted them a ship. Not a large vessel, but elegant and fast, equipped with technology that most species had forgotten existed. They named it the Sanctuary, a mobile base from which they could respond to distress calls. 3 more people joined their small crew. A former soldier named Greg Murphy who had grown disgusted with military politics. A navigation specialist named Lisa Carter who wanted adventure. And a young mechanic named Danny Price who saw as a hero instead of a monster. On the day they prepared to leave Station Nexus, distress calls began flooding their communications system. Word had spread about and what she represented. People in trouble, people who had given up on official help, were calling out to the Guardian. Sat in the Sanctuary's command center, listening to the desperate voices. A colony under attack by raiders. Children kidnapped by slavers. A peaceful species facing extinction from a more aggressive neighbor. Dozens of calls, hundreds. The galaxy was full of suffering, and now people thought she could do something about it. We can't help everyone, said softly. She was looking at the same data, her face troubled. There are too many calls, we're just one ship. Looked at Ember curled up in a specially designed rest area nearby. The hatchling was playing with a holographic toy Vex had given it. So innocent, so trusting. Every being calling for help had been that innocent once. Every one of them deserved a chance. We start with one, said. She highlighted a distress call from a mining colony. Raiders were demanding impossible tribute and threatening to kill hostages if the colonists didn't pay. We save one person, one family, one community at a time. And maybe, eventually, it makes a difference. And if it doesn't, asked, if we're just putting drops of water in an endless ocean of suffering. His energy form blazed bright. Then at least those drops meant everything to the people we saved. Come on, we have a colony to protect. The Sanctuary launched from Station Nexus, leaving the politics and debates behind. As they entered hyperspace, stood at the viewport, watching the stars stretch into lines of light. She thought about her old life. The researcher, that person was gone, buried in the wreckage of Sentinel-7. But someone new had taken her place, someone stronger, someone who had died protecting an innocent life and somehow found the strength to come back. A guardian, a protector, a force for good in a galaxy that desperately needed it. Ember padded up beside her on small clawed feet. The hatchling looked up with those glowing eyes and projected a simple thought through their bond. Safe together, family. Knelt down, her energy form solidifying just enough to let her run her hand along Ember's scales. Yeah, baby, we're family now, and I promise I'll never let anyone hurt you again, or anyone else if I can help it. The mining colony appeared ahead of them, could already sense the fear and desperation of the people trapped there. The raiders had no idea what was coming for them. They thought they were the predators, the strong preying on the weak. They were about to learn different. Had died protecting a dragon hatchling, but she had awoken as something the galaxy hadn't seen in millions of years. A guardian, a defender of the innocent, a reminder that sometimes the greatest power wasn't strength or technology, but the simple choice to help someone in need. The sanctuary dropped out of hyperspace. Its energy form blazed like a star as she prepared to show the raiders what happened when you threaten the helpless. Said, her voice calm and determined, "Get the colonists ready to evacuate. Prepare medical support for any wounded. Greg, Danny, Lisa, your backup if things get complicated." "What are you going to do?" asked. Looked at the raider ships surrounding the colony. She felt the power flowing through her, ancient and terrible, and hers to command. But more importantly, she felt the responsibility that came with it. The choice to protect rather than destroy, to save rather than condemn. "I'm going to give them one chance to leave peacefully," said. "And if they don't take it, I'm going to show them why you don't hurt innocent people, not while I'm around." She phased through the hull and into space, a being of light and will facing down an army of predators. Behind her, Ember watched from the viewport, proud of its guardian, its protector, its family. The galaxy was vast and full of darkness, but tonight, in one small corner, would be the light that pushed back against it. She would be the shield for those who had none. She would be the hope for those who had given up. She had died once protecting a life that mattered. Now she would live to protect as many as she could. And that thought, as she blazed toward the raider ships, made everything worth it.